a profound document, and that this document going to be speaking here a few times every month, which is such a joy to me because I love to be ministered to too, and I love to hear other people speak. So I am going to introduce Miles Ballant. Welcome.
It's such a delight to be here. It excites my whole week. And we're green. So I get up in the mornings, Reeb and I get up early before we do our spiritual practices, and we look out on our world, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. And then I think about the delight of coming here and what I'm going to say. So every day it actually changes. So today I'm going to talk about the future, but I'm going to take a minute to go back and revisit the past and talk about some people that made changes in the past. And then I'll talk about the future, and next I'll have some exercises that you can do or not do, it's up to you, but they're extraordinarily powerful, and they have to do with your consciousness, and they're challenges for spiritual expansion. And then I'll just talk for a moment about Wednesday nights, because I'm extraordinarily excited about that as well. So we're going to start with some old friends, Buddha, Socrates, and Confucius. They lived about 2,500 years ago, all within 100 years of each other, and they literally blanketed the whole known world at that time. And each of these people came up with a new perspective, a new philosophy about how to live life. And they lived that. That was them living that themselves. And as a result of being the example, of being the change that they wanted, they found people that became adherents or said, I think I'll try that path. Now, in all three cases, it sort of died out for literally hundreds of years, but then came back with a vengeance. And of course, Buddha with the path and moderation and love and goodness, and Socrates with an inquiring mind and questioning everything, and then Confucius, who said that people deserve the right to be considered on their own merits, and we can set up a meritocracy, and then went a step further 2,500 years ago and said, if the people that are ruling us do not do a good job, we have the right to overturn that government. All revolutionary. Wow, I'm glad I did that, because I didn't even have this turned on. Here we go. So, three people that set the stage that created a world which was better, a new perspective for people to live from, that sustained itself for over 2,000 years and still does today. The Socratic method of inquiry is the basis of all science. Buddha's way, or the path, and being moderate is the way of many religions, and Buddhism itself, of course. And then, of course, Confucius, which was literally thrown out when the communists, when Mao came in, and is back today stronger than ever. They have over 3,000 Confucian schools in China now. And the reason I bring this up is this is that time. Again, it's arrived again. This is a time of great change. And one of the things I'm going to be doing in the class on creating your own reality, is going over new perspectives. The greatest scientist of the 20th century didn't have a laboratory, Albert Einstein. All he had was his mind. And what he used his mind for was to create thought experiments and to explore different options. So that's what we're going to be doing. In the class, week by week, I'm going to be assembling a structure that we can follow, building a foundation with new perspectives that we can use in our life every day, even if it's just from a place of awareness. And it still wouldn't hurt if I turned it on. Well, fortunately, we have Pierre back there, so I'm saved. Thank you, Pierre. So, new perspectives that create a foundation. So, if you're here today, you're officially an old soul. You've had many lives, and you're on the path. And that path is a path of awakening. But I want to put things in perspective. We know a great deal spiritually and metaphysically, or you would not be here. On the other hand, let's not get too carried away. Let's say that our friends and our family and our neighbors who are not on this particular path have gone, say, 100 feet. And let's say we've gone 1,000 feet. But the path is 100 miles long. We're just beginning. And as you'll see from the things I'm going to talk about in our future, we have a long way to go because we need to choose new belief patterns and structures in which to live. Now, the question is, who's going to make it? Who's going to make the leap to this new world, this new world? Well, everybody. Nobody's left behind. Even if they never lift a finger in this lifetime, when they wake up in their next lifetime, they're going to be directly connected to all that is, and they're going to see their Akash all their lives, and they're going to be in that place just like us. So we don't have to worry about, are they on their path? Am I on my path? Is my neighbor on the path? Everybody's on the path, and everybody's going to arrive. Now, if we think back to the huge changes between, say, 1800 and 1900, and even the bigger changes between 1900 and the year 2000, they were literally gigantic. I mean, just consider in 1900, no cars, no phones, no movies, and a science that was radically different than we have now. And of course, medicine was in a completely different state. And then take a look at the year 2000. It's literally staggering. And I assure you that the changes between 2000 and 2100 are going to far outdistance the changes that have taken place in the 2 previous centuries. So, let's get right into it. Within the next 100 years, there are going to be no wars, no military, no police, no laws, no legal system. There'll be no medical system, no doctors, no medicine, no disease. Wow. How does that happen? I mean, that seems like a long way from where we are. But if you're on the path, and if you're here today, you're on the path, no doubt about it, there's actually not even any work to do. And it goes like this. One of the things, or two of the things that make this giant revolution so possible is that we're connected to our inner spirit, we're connected to love, and that we're all telepathic. Now, you don't have to work at this. As the energy rises, this state actually already exists right now if you'll turn your consciousness in that direction. But in the next 15 years, you will fully arrive at this state where you're in a state of love, where you're telepathic. And when you're in that state, It's not a state of free will. If you're on this path, you have made a decision that love is the answer. And we all know that. Is there anybody here that can even have a moment of dispute about that? I don't think so. And as a result of that, we do not have free will with respect to love. And so, when we interact with other people, when we interact in our daily life, we're going to be doing everything from a place of love. So, when that moment arrives, are we going to need a military? Are we going to need police? Are we going to need love? Do we have to worry about the terrorists? Well, I don't think so, because we're coming from a place of love, and furthermore, telepathically, they couldn't get away with doing anything wrong because we're going to know about it. And what's the cause of disease? Secrets. Secrets are the cause of disease. That's what causes disease in your body. Secrets from the people you love. Secrets from your friend. Secrets from yourself. Things that you don't even want to look at. Well, when you're in a place of love and everything is open and you're telepathic, you can't get away with secrets. And so disease just falls by the wayside. And sex and sexuality will be completely different. And the reason is this. We have a lot of drivers in our life. Sports and food and sex and money, and the list is literally endless. Now, sex is something that all that is, we as all that is, have created in this reality so that every time we connect with our inner spirit, and that has ensured the human race, so that we're here on this planet propagating and creating a pathway, a gateway, so that we can come in here and share this experience. But when you're already in a state of love that's actually greater than that connection that you experience, then that becomes something that is no longer a driving force in your life. You're already feeling it in an extraordinarily powerful way. And there'll be no educational system, because you'll know everything. Your knowledge will be open to you when you turn your focus in the direction that you want to know, and the knowledge will just simply come to you. And children around the age of 3 will decide who they want for their mentor, and then assign themselves to them, and that's the way they'll grow. From experience, from example, being in a relationship with somebody that they choose to learn and grow from. And there'll be no money. Everyone will work. That'll be a deeply inculcated belief about the importance of work. But you'll work doing exactly what you want. Now, our planet, by the end of the century, will have a place in the galaxy and will actually help other planets in their energetic transitions, just like we're going through now. And in the next 1,000 years, you'll eat by eating something about the size of a peanut that's super oxygenated, and that'll be your food for the day. Lives will be about 1,000 years or longer, maybe 3,000. And people will easily change their sexuality during their lives, because you can't sustain one perspective for that long. It's just not healthy. So, people people are going to find great joy in their lives, in that connection to their inner spirit. But what you're also going to find is the challenges that you have today that call you to expansion are going to be there tomorrow. That is not going to change. The way you think about and feel about other people. And in truth, your biggest job is going to be thinking. What do you think about the future? And because there's no time, you will know the future. So when you think, you'll understand the belief, and then you'll see where that belief leads 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And so that enables you to make changes in your now. So, as we go through our life and we take these opportunities for expansion, just like we have now, in other words, whatever is in our life now that's calling us to expand, and what's calling you to expand? Wherever you feel uncomfortable. Wherever you feel uncomfortable is a place, an opportunity for expansion. So, with that, I want to emphasize that you can see that our old belief structures about how we live our life have to be reassembled in new and different ways. We need to come up with a new value system. Now we have a huge leg up in that we'll be directly connected to spirit. We'll be directly connected to love. And that in a lot of senses, that'll make a lot of decisions for us and make our lives simpler, on the one hand. On the other hand, you're going to need to find where you can grow. Because there's no point in being in this existence unless you have a purpose, unless something lights your fire. So you're going to have to discover your fire. That fire may change many times in your lifetime, but you need to pay attention to that fire, your excitement, and follow it. Now, here are some exercises I want to challenge you with. Find a quiet place in the morning, like your bed, and connect to your soul and feel the great joy your soul has in you and in your life. And this is not you lay there and let your soul come to you. This is decision. You need to make a decision to feel that joy. And when you make the decision to move forward, your spirit is right there waiting for you and will connect with you, and you will feel the joy that your spirit and your soul feels in your existence and in your life, because it is fair to say that it's literally overjoyed at your courage and your strength in choosing to come here with the challenges you put on your plate. And the next exercise is to feel every part of the world loving you. Just lay there, breathe, and open up and feel and understand that literally every atom, every molecule, every cell of this reality loves you unconditionally and is here for you. And if it's in your life, it's following your script. If it's in your life, it's following your script. And so you can see clearly that everything in this world is reflecting you back to you. So you never have to worry about, is it them? No, there is no them. The them is their all that isness choosing part of the infinity of who they are to play a role in your life. And that role is to reflect you back to you. So, the next exercise is an experiment. This is to do with love. So, when you're encountering difficulties, turn your focus away from the difficulty and instead focus on loving yourself. Let's say you're in an argument with somebody. You're sitting on a couch and it's going, and just withdraw your focus from the argument and take your focus inside and focus on loving yourself. Loving yourself even more. And have a dialogue, create a dialogue in yourself about how wonderful you are, how much you love yourself, how awesome you are. And then, after you've got in the feeling place of that, come back to awareness and physical reality and note the difference. And I guarantee you, you will see a difference in where you're at, in what's going on with that person that you're interacting with. It's very powerful. And the last exercise is to practice being all that is. Now, this environment seems like it's a little slow to react. It's not really. The only thing that blocks us from having instantaneous manifestation is our beliefs. But in our dreams, there's instant manifestation. So when you go to sleep at night, give yourself orders to your consciousness, to your soul, about what you want. Always asking for clarity. And make your orders a command. In other words, take that mantle on. And then over the next couple of days, pay attention to what comes into your life. See if you're getting that clarity. See if you're getting that connection. See if you have a new perspective and a new way to go through life. So that's it. A little short. I hadn't anticipated that. In my mind it was nice and long. But with that, we'll end it and open it up for questions.
Yes, who has questions for Miles? About the class or about, changing your perspective? And, we really are in a new world. I mean, the things, I think that's the thing the Mayan calendar taught us. The things that worked before will not work now. When we got to that, everybody thought it was the end of the world. Well, it was. It was the end of the world as we knew it. So we are stepping into a new world. And so to find the tools to be able to maneuver and function and change our beliefs is really a gift, I think, that Miles and all of us are trying to. I'm going back and reading some of the old masters and everything and trying to apply some of those things to my life. So anybody have a question? Or yes?
Miles, I was wondering where some of the information that you were talking to us about, where we're going into the future, where can we find it? Where was it?
I started with Edgar Casey and then went to Seth and then later on went to Abraham. And then after about 2000, I had people come to me telling me about other people that were channeling, like Cryon and like Bashar and others as well. And Adronis. So those are the big three for me. I'm really pay attention to who I'm listening to, because that's the way I think of feeding my soul. And they go into it in great detail. The one thing I would caution is this. Whenever you're listening to something that engenders fear in you from what they're saying, discount it.
Yes.
Just don't listen to it. Don't pay attention to it. Because we've talked in here many times, wherever you turn your focus, that's what you create. You can't stop it. So if you have a point of fear and you turn in that direction, you'll make it bigger. And the universe will send you an endless stream of confirmation of whatever that is. But when you take your focus, and it's an act of will, from there and put it on, well, love is going to conquer, love is going to be there, this is the path that I choose, then that's where you're sending your energy, and that's where you're creating your future. Now I want to go a little step further. We're not doing this together. This is not happening together. Although we have a huge amount of oneness, you determine the rate at which you move along this path, because every reality exists now complete. So every time you make a decision, you take a small quantum leap, and I'll go into this in quite a bit of detail in the Seth class, in the How You Create Your Reality class. And each one of those instants, you take another step towards heaven on earth, which actually exists right now, if we could believe that. So the people are already in that reality. So every time you make a decision to turn your focus to a place that feels good and is powerful, a place that is loving, you take a step forward toward that reality, which already exists. So Mary Lou may get there in 3 years, and I may get there in 15 years, but we're moving in the same direction. It's literally like a train. But you determine how fast you get there. So Reba and I have seen huge changes as we've expanded our spiritual practices, and we noticed that we're definitely moving down this path faster than we ever anticipated. And we can tell because the challenges in our life are bigger than we ever anticipated. We thought, we're retired, it's going to be bliss. I don't think so. That's just not happening. And then we're calling into question, as she helps her sister and I help my mother, how many beliefs do I have about aging and old age? I'm confronted with it every day because I call her every day. I go over 2 or 3 times a week to help her. And so I have to pay attention to, before I start that interaction with her, I set an intention for how it's going to go. How I'm going to see her as a powerful person on her path, making decisions.
Beautiful. And you know, what you said, that goes back, you know, the Bible is where I came from, but that's what it said. You know, even in churches, I used to say, you know, it says God is love, peace, joy, you know, harmony, all of these things. So if anything makes you fearful, that's not coming from the universe. That's not coming from our original source. You know, that's really how we can judge something. If you're watching news, or you're reading a book, or somebody's talking to you, and you feel that fear well up in you, that is definitely not spirit or the universe. Anybody else have any questions or things they'd like to ask about the class? Yeah, Nance.
I'd like to make a comment. And what you say is, I think about when I get together with my son, and we're talking about the past. And we could be talking about the same day and the same environment, and we both have totally different memories of that.
Yeah. And furthermore, every time you go back to it, it'll be different. Both for him and for you. And every time you pick up a book and read it, that book will be different.
Yes, for sure.
Because we're recreating our reality every instant, countless times a second. So the universe literally reorganizes itself according to where we are, instant by instant, and arranges all the energy of the universe to support us in wherever we're at. So when you pick up that book, you're going, I didn't read that the last time. Oh, this is new to us. Reba and I experience this all the time when we're reading. And I've read Seth Speaks in the Nature of Personal Reality. I can't even count the number of times. I've read them, I've underlined them, I've indexed them. And I go back and virtually every time I'm going, whew, that takes my breath away.
Have you ever noticed that people that think that the world's going to hell in a handbag, they have all the information to back that up because it comes to them.
Yeah.
Whereas you turn on your computer and you have all the information that we are ascending and, you know, people are waking up. It's that what we put out there we're going to draw in to really consolidate what we believe.
And that's such a great example because I've heard people talk about Facebook and what a difficult time they have. Facebook is my heaven. Honestly, I am connected to people on Facebook that love being positive, that love the Seth material. I get drunk on it. I mean, literally, I just go from one wonderful post to the next, or they'll have somebody dancing, or they'll have a little child, or something with an animal, and I'm just, you know, tapping my foot and smiling, and
So it strengthens your beliefs because you're putting that out there and bringing it right into you.
yeah, I can't remember the last time I had a negative post on my Facebook of any kind.
Isn't that amazing? You know, those are things that we can look at in our own life and what we're bringing in and see what really are maybe the secrets that we're keeping from ourselves that you mentioned that really brings in disease. Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask? Or Reba?
I wanted to say something. Miles said a lot of things that might have stretched people a lot, right? But one of the things, I thought this was an interesting perspective. You know, he said that when we live to be 1,000 years that we would change genders, you know, because we would be able to do that. And I know there's a lot in the news now about transgender. And I read that, you know, we're moving toward being androgynous. And that what's going on with that, these are like the pioneers in the front of the line. And as they bring that to our attention, and as the transgender people come onto the planet and bring that to our attention, that is a piece of us moving toward being androgynous. I just thought that made so much sense, and I was just like amazed.
That is beautiful. And you know, at Dom and Her, in the old place, we had an androgynous person. And you know, really that is so biblical too, because we really were androgynous. You know, we're androgynous in the womb. You know, before we really, you know, take on the sex that we are, we're androgynous. And that I believe that too. We really are moving there. You know, Barbara Marx Hubbard, who is one of the world's greatest visionists, says we're going from procreation, which is sexual, how we create, to co-creation. You know, that we're going to be co-creating from within ourselves. And you know, in the Bible, in Genesis, they didn't really have sex or create till they left paradise. And it says, and then Adam knew Eve. So in the garden, how were they reproducing? You know, they were reproducing out of their consciousness, out of the wholeness. You know, androgynous means we're whole inside. We're both male and female. And we can create out of that wholeness instead of needing somebody else to create. I mean, really, our whole perspectives of life are being changed right now. And that was beautiful. Where did you read that, Reba?
I'm not sure. Someplace probably online. I'm not even sure, but I just thought it made sense to me.
You know, Wayne Dyer's always said, you know, homosexuals are here to teach us such a lesson of love.
And that's probably the first step. You know,
Right.
We've been very set in our male and female.
Right.
And little by little, we're being stretched.
Boy, that is really, I've never heard it quite like that. Awesome. Yeah, Kat?
There were several of the channeled entities that we've heard speak say that that's one of our biggest blocks to our spiritual growth is our over-identification with our sex, because it's not a natural thing. I mean, we have cultural ones that are different than what's real, and they said that's one of the bigger blocks to our spiritual growth, because we identify so much in that cultural viewpoint of who we are, that it doesn't allow us to see the rest of us.
Well, one of the things that happens is all this other stuff falls away, money and education, and the list is pretty much endless. You have right in front of you your expansion. In other words, right now we can get lost watching football, or we can get lost going to a race, or going dancing, or going out to a bar, or endless things like that. And of course, you won't be able to drink because it just won't feel good. It will be, that vibration won't be high enough for you. So it's going to be really hard to run away to places, and what you're going to have in front of you is your opportunities for expansion.
So in other words, we're not going to be able to have those things that numb us anymore.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
You know, we do numb ourselves and we do run away, but you know, we're not going to be able to get away with that anymore.
Well, you know what I wanted to ask you, when you said even though, you know, we won't have wars, we won't have, you know, we're going to have, you know, be able to read each other's minds and all of that, we're still going to have challenges. What kind of challenges, you know, I was thinking to myself, what kind of challenges are we going to have when we're living in that state?
Well, we're a really young civilization. And so I'm going to break this into two parts. The first part is that we think there are not many planets or civilizations out there similar to ours. But I learned from Edgar Cayce right away that even in our planetary system, in between lives, we go to the other planets and they're like schools. Mars is a school, Venus is a school, Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn. These are schools, and you go there in between lives and learn, and then you bring that learning back to this reality as a light, a shining light, a leader. Now, the civilizations that exist just in our galaxy alone, 100 billion stars, 1 trillion planets, are much, much older than ours. 1 million years older. And what they've done is they've gone from, they don't even use technology at all. Technology doesn't exist for them. They do literally everything with their mind. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful not to have to worry about how you run that computer and what thing you do, that when you think it, you're there, and you're making that connection. And it's not just that you make the connection, but you make it with insight. So what happens is there'll be places in your life where you don't feel like you have a deep enough understanding, and you'll get together other people and create a play, like we call life, and put yourself in that and have referees that make sure you don't get sucked in too deep. But the end of it is always the same, where you go, it's so painful, you go, no, stop, and then shockingly, because it's instantaneous reaction, it stops. And then you sort of wake up and went, oh wow, I just made that decision and it stopped. But it won't be needed here because we'll be in oneness with all that is. So, you'll be able to think thoughts and look to a future which will be obvious to you because you'll see it in terms of this range of probabilities can happen, and you'll be able to decide, well, is that a future I want to step in the direction of? And as a society, when we go to sleep at night, now we're picking what shows up in our life. We're actually creating the plays and putting the props in that we walk into when we wake up in the morning. So we have oneness there. And we actually have a lot of oneness right now in our, I don't know how to put this, in our superconscious connection, because we're telepathic right now. And we make countless decisions about how we're going to interact with each other. So that's going to change. And things are going to slow down. And you're going to learn to connect to a flow and experience things in your life differently and over again until, like Groundhog Day, you get it the way you want it.
Wow. A lot to think about. Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask? Reba.
I'd like to give a little astrology report.
Yes, I was going to ask you.
Well, this is more recent. He's way out there in the future. I'll talk about the next 8 years. So,
Stand up, Reba.
oh, okay. So did everybody get to see the eclipse or some version of it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's very interesting that the eclipse happened now as we're going into this intense change. Another eclipse, a total solar eclipse, will happen April 8th, 2024. And it's going to come down from Maine, and it's going to cross over that other path. And where it's going to cross is in Carbondale, I think it's Carbondale, Illinois. But anyway, the reason I'm saying that is these solar eclipses are sort of bookends for a very intense time of change. Now, something that we're moving toward is a very powerful time in 2020. And I don't know how many have sort of tuned into that. But some of you may know that there's a 20-year cycle. It happens 2000 and 2020 and 2040. Well, in 2020, two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, they come together every 20 years. And they sort of rule what happens on the earth plane, our economy and our politics and our everyday life. Well, that's going to happen in 2020. But it's going to be a very unusual connection because this never happens, but Pluto, which is all about change, will also, through that year, connect with both Saturn and Jupiter. So just think transformation. I mean, 2020, I think, is going to be way more intense and way more changeful, and probably depending on what we do now, than what we've really experienced. So 2020 is sort of like, I kind of think it's like when you see the light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing, and you say, yikes, it's not a train, you know, anymore. We get that. Then we have these, then in 20, I'm not sure if it's 2024, do you know, Kath, when Pluto, we have our Pluto return. So the U.S. will be like 245 or something. So at that time, Pluto, which is transformation, will be doing a special dance in the chart of our country, and that's why we're going through so much transformation now. I think our country's going to look totally different in 8 years. I don't think we're even going to recognize it. So astrologically, all of these things are supported, but I thought you might want to know about that eclipse, because isn't it interesting that it happens at the beginning of this cycle and at the end, and all this intensity in between, and then that, you know, Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, and that's going to be in 2020. One's going to happen like in January, and then one's going to happen in the middle of the, you know, I can't remember which is which, you know, the conjunctions. But anyway, so that's kind of your little astrology report for a while this is happening.
A little something about that. Last year I went into the SETI Institute, Extraterrestrial Institute, and I was sent to a private viewing. I went to this Extraterrestrial Institute in California, and they sent me over to a private viewing of the newest discovery of Pluto. And in 2020, they're going to be going to Pluto, and I got to see a private, was like exciting. They had a satellite going around Pluto taking these pictures. Pluto has a moon, and it has another planet next to it. It doesn't have two moons. It has water. It has water erupting from it, and it's frozen once it hits, but it's warm inside, and there's so much going on with Pluto that I find that very interesting. And I, you know, the fact that I snuck into this private viewing from NASA was great too.
Very cool.
There is a lot going on with
There's a
Pluto,
lot
and it
going on
wasn't
with
things
Pluto.
the astronomers expected at
Yeah.
all. The main thing I want to say though, Pluto has a big heart. If you haven't seen that, go on and Google it. Pluto, when they got close, there's a big heart, and it's like, it
Yeah.
covers like 2/3 of Pluto. And you know, it's the top part. I mean, Pluto has a heart on it, and we're about love.
Yeah. Everything. Remember when the single eye was in the heavens? I forget
I got a
what
picture of that.
year that was. Right. You can go on the internet and see that. I mean, it says the heavens declare the glory of God. It said the lights are put in the sky for signs and seasons for us. They really are speaking to us. The cosmos is talking to us. You know, I think that shadow, like Reba was saying last week, that shadow going right across the United States, that our shadows are coming up like a boil, I always say, because they have to come to the surface. You know, a boil doesn't go away till all the poison comes to the surface. And we're seeing it, I think, personally, and we're seeing it in our country. You know, the things that we look at as bad, politics and things like that, we wish they were different or whatever. But if we can see them from that perspective of love, and that the universe is really, you know, ushering in a new season, and these things have to come to the surface so they can heal. You know, the shadows are coming to the surface so they can heal. So I think just shifting our perspective to that changes everything in our life and in our country.
I was wondering if we might persuade Larry
I was thinking the same thing.
to say a few words. He and his wife put themselves right smack dab in the
Yes.
middle of the solar eclipse, and he was sharing with me what a profound experience it was. Sorry.
Yes.
But I thought it would be wonderful if he could say a few words to us about that.
Would you do that, Larry?
Why don't you come up
Yeah.
here, Larry? Your natural place is behind the podium.
stand here and then we'll get you.
Yes, okay, thank you. So, good morning, everybody. So, Jan and I went up and we did put ourselves right smack in the center of the totality area. So we go to Franklin, North Carolina. We've been going up there for quite a few years. We like to go there camping because it's right next to the Appalachian Trail. It weaves in and out through that area, and it's pretty remote, just beautiful forest area. So Jan got this idea about 3 months ago about going to see the eclipse, and I was like, I don't know, I guess we could, and so we kicked it around because we haven't been on vacation for a while. And I got to looking at it, and when I looked at the map and I zoomed in, I saw that the center line of the eclipse went right through the campground where we go and stay.
Wow.
So we looked at that and we said, I guess we're supposed to go. So we did. And when we got up there, Franklin's a little town. I guess it's probably about an hour and a half kind of south of Asheville, North Carolina. It's in the western, that little corner tip where all the mountains are. It's like 3 hours to an airport. I mean, it's fairly remote. But the town of Franklin was expecting 100,000 people to show up. I don't think they actually got that many, but there were quite a few people. But where we went, we wound up, the campground was actually full, so we couldn't even get into the campground. So we had to go out this Forest Service road to a primitive area, and we set up our camp there, and there were probably about 30 people there with us. And this was out in the middle of, literally, of nowhere, right on the center line, and it was an opening. There was an opening in the forest, probably about maybe 200 feet across. So, and we had checked it out a day ahead of time just to make sure that at the proper time the sun was going to be there, and it was. And so we were confident in that, and the weather had been really good, so we were fairly confident that the weather was going to be good. There were a few clouds in and out, but for the most part it was clear, and especially at the time of totality it was clear. And there were hikers coming down from the Appalachian Trail to watch the event. And so it was just really neat because we were just literally out in the middle of the woods, probably a good 18 miles from town. And like I said, the Appalachian Trail just weaves in and out through that area. So people were just coming out of the woods, just showing up with their packs. And in the center of this area was there were big boulders, about 3 feet across, and they were set up in a circle. So it was like this sacred area, and that's where everybody gathered to watch it. And it was just really amazing. As it started, it started to look like a little Pac-Man, and everybody's kind of like, oh yeah, it's kind of neat. And that went on, and then when it got right to and it started to get dark, which was really neat because now the crickets came out and the tree toads came out, and it was like twilight. It wasn't pitch black, but it was really dark twilight, like just before the sun drops over the mountains. And then when all the creatures started behaving like it was nighttime, it was just really powerful. And then when it happened, all of a sudden everybody's just kind of sitting there and we're looking at it. It's like, okay, and all of a sudden when it happened, everybody's just like, whoa, because you could see and you could literally take off your glasses. Jan and I, we actually had welder's goggles, and so we were able to just sit there and look at it the whole time. And everybody, took off their glasses, and you're able to just stand there and look at it. There were a few stars around the fringe. It might have been because of the clouds that we couldn't really see like a lot of stars. There were a few, but it was just amazing. And at the moment, at the end of the period of totality, just for a brief few seconds, when that first piece of light came from the right side of the sun as the moon moved across, it was probably the brightest whitest, purest light I've ever seen. And it was only there just for a couple of seconds, and then as the moon moved across, then it, the light began to flood like normal, the more goldish, yellowish color. But just for a couple seconds was that most pure light I think I've probably ever seen. And